So we're starting our gusset pickup and then the decreases. So let me just show you. You're at your heel turn. You finish that, and what you're going to be doing is knitting up stitches to go up the side, the first side of your heel flap. Couple of things that can be a problem. The first is sometimes people complain they get a little bit of a gap or a hole where they're joining here at the bottom of the heel flap, and also right at the top where you're picking up, you're joining with the stitches that have been sitting around on your instep doing absolutely nothing. I'm going to show you a couple of ways to be aware of that so that maybe you can catch it at the beginning. Fact is, if you have a hole and it bothers you when you're finished with your sock, take a little bit of yarn, take a needle, and just, stitch it closed. It's not a big deal. You're the only one who's going to know that you did that. And if it bothers you, fix it. Let me just show you a couple things. First off, see, this is the last stitch on the heel turn, okay? And this is the stitch below. Remember when I was adamant that you slip the first stitch as you were doing the heel flap? Well, this is why. Look at the nice little marching orders of stitches that you now have going down the side of your heel flap. Now the only thing you have to remember is it's going to want to kind of curl your heel flap, so you do have to rough it into place and find those little marching stitches. But look at this. This is just so cool. Here's a V, here's a V, 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 all the way down and all the way up the other side. Makes life a lot easier. But let's talk about the potential of a little gap or a little hole when you turn here and catch the stitches. If I were to turn and grab that very, very first V, it's kind of stretched out here. The problem with that is if I knit into it, which is what I tend to do, I knit in, I don't pick up the stitches on a needle and then knit them up. See, that's what I'm talking about, that kind of gappy thing that can happen at the beginning. So what I do is I kind of just play around. Here is the stitch below the one I've made. I might go down a stitch and knit into that, and look, that's not so bad. See, that's pretty tidy. Then what I might do is really turn my stitches on the side, and I might knit into the back stitch, the back half. That's what I tend to do, is I tend to really twist my slip stitches so that I can get into the farthest half of each stitch. And what I will do now, see, now there's not really a gap, and well, there kind of is there. See, it kind of depends on how much that's going to bother you. That bothers me. So how am I going to fix that? Well, maybe I can do something like this. See, that's what I'm saying. It kind of depends on your yarn, how stretchy it is, the colors. So see, that's not so bad. And then now go into the back of the very next stitch. Oh, look at that. That's a whole lot better. Play with it. You're not going to hurt anything. It does not matter how many stitches you pick up on either side of your heel flap, because you're going to be decreasing until you get back to your original half of the stitches. In my case, it's 16. If you were doing 64, of course, it was your 32. But the point is, pick up as many stitches as you need to feel comfortable here, because once you get down to where you've picked up at the instep, you're going to have the same issue. You're going to want to pick around, pick extra stitches, whatever makes you feel like you don't have a gap or a loose connection there. All right, then what you're going to do now, I like to turn my slip stitches as much as possible, and I actually go into the farthest little stitch, and I knit into that one, farthest stitch, knit into that one, okay, then I turn it again, and like I said, you really have to kind of struggle because your fabric on your heel flap really wants to, and it doesn't have to be the back one. If you feel comfortable doing the front one, you can do that. If you like that look. I like the way this kind of makes the stitches march down along the side. Not a big deal. No one is really going to look at your socks that closely as long as you don't have a gap. So anyway, I'm going to continue on down and on down all the way till I get to where the instep is. Then I will make a join, and I have to show you what you're going to do there. See, now technically I just did my last slip stitch of the heel flap, but again, you've got this whole gappy issue. If I were to knit into here, it's going to make a huge hole. Don't really want to do that. I'm going to kind of come down, dink around in here, make, I'm not really happy with that. I'm going to come in here and, oh, see, that kind of tidies that all up. And now I'm ready to go on and join to my instep stitches. Now that's an interesting little quandary you have to think about when you're using a long circular needle and magic loop. Remember, when you were originally knitting, half of the stitches were on one half of the cable, remember, and then you pulled your cables around and then you knit the other half. Well, look what's happening to your, quote, other half of your stitches. All of a sudden, you're going to have a whole bunch here. Now, this is a quandary whether you're using double points or whether you're using a circular needle. You're just going to have a lot of stitches to deal with for a while. I like to just continue to function as though this were half of my stitches, and I still have this half of the stitches as my top of my foot. So I'm here, just like I did before. I'm going to push the needle and I'm going to pull this one out and turn it around and see, look, all of a sudden all of these stitches are, you're comfortable with this concept, back here. And I'm now going to knit across the instep because I feel comfortable that I picked up stitches well here. And if not, I'll go back later and sew it closed. Okay, now I'm going to knit across here and I will show you. Let me just knit across here and then I will show you how I pick up and head on up the other half of the heel flap.